Hello and welcome back to the Void Century podcast. Today we bring you the newest chapter of One Piece, chapter 975, Kinemon's Clever Trick. The cover story is of note this week. Normally we don't talk about the cover stories, but finally Gotti rescued Chiffon. Only it's not Chiffon, it's Lola. We know that by it says thank you whoever you are. And she's giving Gotti a kiss, so we can only assume that Gotti and Lola are now going to be a thing. Alright, but in all seriousness now, let's go ahead and start the chapter. Alright, so we see Shinobu tied up. She's tied up by snakes. They are obviously Kanjuro's drawings. They're looking a lot better now. So, yay Kanjuro. I guess it turns out he was sandbagging his devil fruit all along. So, Shinobu's calling out for Momo, and she's like, Kanjuro, why would you do this to us? I thought you were our friend. And then Kanjuro's like, oh my gosh, what's up with my intel? Why are these pirates here? And didn't Lord Orochi go ahead and send enough men? Shouldn't even known this was going to happen. What's Luffy doing here? Law showed up. I thought he was shown in prison. And then we see Frankie and Usopp on board the ship. And they're like, we don't know who tried to destroy the Sunny, but those guys are idiots. I mean, the ship's made of atom wood. Explosives were pretty ineffective. And they're like, hey, Kinemon, sorry, it took us a while to fix the sails. And then Kanjuro's like, oh my god, what the hell? The ship didn't explode either. And then we see some of the Straw Hats on board the Sunny. We see Carrot in the back in the rain. She's like, hey everybody, we're here. And then Luffy is looking awesome in his new coat, just sitting there, and he's like, hey, Kinemon, can we blow up these battleships? Is that cool with you? We see some more members on the crew. We see Chopper, Sanji, Sicilian, and everybody's commenting on their forces that are supposed to be here. So apparently 200 of Inuyasha's musketeers and 280 members of the Atameyama Thieves Brigade. I think they might be related to Ashura Doji's forces. I think that might be his force. And then Frankie and Usopp are sitting around and they're like, hey guys, we repaired dozens of ships. Where are these guys? Everyone's supposed to be here right now. And then we see Zoro and Brook and Nami, and I love this panel because we get to see Zeus in the background, and Zeus is all dolled up in a samurai helmet, and I think it's adorable. But back to the content. So we get Zoro, and he's like, hey guys, all these samurai are supposed to be here. All the rebels are supposed to be here with weapons from Ringo. And if you remember, Ringo is the region where Kawamatsu and Kyukimaru, the little fox, went ahead and hoarded weapons for all those years until Kawamatsu got captured. And then Nami's like, hey, Kinemon and the Scabbards, did you guys get into trouble?
All right, so next we see Kinemon apologizing, and we see Kinemon on his arms and knees bowing to Luffy, apologizing, saying sorry that the plan was leaked. I mean, he's embarrassed by now, and he's probably feeling helpless, but also relief that there's some help. So he explains that he knows nothing of the fate of the samurai forces that were supposed to be at the harbor. The Beast Pirates also don't really understand what's going on, but we see a shot of both the Sunny, the Polar Tang, and Kid. So I'm not sure if Kid is on his ship or not, but we see his back.
He's on his ship. The Victoria Punk, I think, is the name of his ship.
Oh, he's on a ship. Okay, cool. So next we see the Beast Pirates, and it's two gifters. One's like an albatross-looking guy and a butterfly-looking girl. And they're just commenting on the fact that, it's okay that we didn't destroy the Sunny, but we got all the other boats, all the other ships. So, one boat's not going to make a huge difference. So the Beast Pirates state that all the rebels that have been lured into the open will die tomorrow, and they're going to have a festival celebrating the alliance of both the Beast Pirates and the Big Mom Pirates. So the Kid Pirates and Heart Pirates kind of both look at each other, or they both look like they're just shocked and what? These two forces, these two Yonko are going to be allied together? What the hell? This is really scary. We don't want this to happen type of face. They look very just insecure and uneasy about that news. The Beast Pirates now start mocking Luffy, Kid, and Law, showing up to save the samurai. They're calling them small timers because they were already captured in Wano in the past. So right now, these guys are really underestimating the strength of Luffy, Kid, and Law. The fact that Luffy probably could contend with Queen. They don't know this. So the Beast Pirates are just kind of acting tougher than they actually are. So the Beast Pirates claim that they're going to sink the ships in the name of Kaido. And Now begins a little sea battle, a little skirmish. We see panels of the Beast Pirates preparing some cannons, and then we also see Luffy, Law, and Kid preparing to attack. And all the while they're just arguing with each other on who gets to take out the pirates, because like they all want that action. They all want to be the ones who take down the pirates because they're just kind of aching to get in there and fight. So yeah, Kid starts off with his punk rotten, which it looks like it's kind of like gathering metal around him, because before this he just has kind of like a jacket, and now he has like a bunch of like metal. It's almost like armor surrounding his body. We see Luffy going into Bounce Man. Like he just kind of always starts with that these days. And Law opening up a room. So yeah, okay, so this is a really nice callback to the auction house when they first teamed up, except now they're kind of more at full force. So now the Beast Pirates are realizing, oh shit, we are screwed. Let's try to talk this through and not get owned. And their battleship gets utterly destroyed. One of the 3 battleships just gets demolished. And now we see Luffy, Kid, and Law sitting on the scraps of the boat, just kind of like on floating flotsam, still bickering over who gets to take out the Beast Pirates. And while they're bickering, one of the remaining boats of the Beast Pirates are ordering to fire onto Law, Luffy, and Kid.
So, in this moment, we see a voice call out from the open sea, and he says, "You boys seem to be having some trouble." And in pops Kyoshiro here, and all the Beast Pirates, they cheer, they rally, they're like, "Kyoshiro's here, we're saved!" And then we see Luffy, Law, and Kid, they're still bickering on this piece of flotsam, and they're just chilling out and just, going ahead and bickering over who had the larger tag, who was really responsible for sinking the battleship. And then we see the Beast Pirates, and they're like, "Lord Orochi ordered for them to be sunk to the bottom of the sea. That's all we need to do." They're basically telling Kyoshiro his orders, and he's like, "Sink the enemy, you say, allow me." So we get this cool panel of Kyoshiro unsheathing his sword, and he just goes ahead and slices through the Beast Pirates battleship, and he slices like a chunk off where the cannons were, and the Beast Pirates are absolutely shocked. They're like, what are you doing, boss?" And Kyoshiro, being as cool as ever, he says, "No need to sink you, I simply disabled the cannons you had pointing this way." And Zoro looks up and he's like, "Hey, I know this dude." And the Beast Pirates are like, "Hey man, we're not your enemies, why would you attack our ship?" And the Beast Pirates are like, "That's the boss in the Yakuza capital who took over after Hyogoro." In this moment, we see Kyoshiro call out to the Red Scabbards, and he says, "I'm the Yakuza of the Flower Capital now. My epithet is napping Kyoshiro." And Ashura Doji's like, "Yo, be careful of this dude. He is really strong. He's a demon with a blade." And then we see Kyoshiro. He said, "The 200 men of the Kyoshiro family are at your disposal in this raid." And the Beast Pirates, they're like, "Oh my god, we've been backstabbed. Are you kidding us right now?" And then we see Kawamatsu and Kiku, and they're like, "What do you mean? Why would you support us? Why would you help us?" We see Kyoshiro here taking off his pompadour, and he says, "I owe the Kozuki family a debt. I owe them a favor." He said, "I think about the Mountain God incident a lot. The Mountain God incident that happened 40 years ago. Kinemon. Everybody says that it was Odin who's responsible for the Mountain God incident." And we see him cast his pompadour aside, and Kinemon looks a little shocked. And Kyoshiro goes on to say, "All the people of Wano believe that this was due to Lord Odin's rampaging, but it was actually due to your greed in your younger days." And at this moment, Kinemon realizes who Kyoshiro actually is, and he's like, "Only one person actually knows about that, and I've never talked about this with anybody." And he's like, "Denjiro, is that you?" And we see Denjiro turn towards Kinemon, and he's like, it is me. "You don't recognize me. I would have told you about this earlier, but I had to lay low. I had to make sure that everything was certain before I went ahead and revealed myself to you guys. I'm sorry." So he said, "I would have gone ahead and revealed myself to you, but I just wanted to stay your enemy just in case, just to make sure that we had the best chances of survival." And he goes, "Sure enough, the traitor came out. If I had named myself as Denjiro, then Orochi would have had me killed, and the betrayer would have gone ahead and completed his mission." And he also said, "To top it off, I went ahead and I freed all the prisoners in the Rosetsu prison, over 1,000 samurai That adds a total of 1,200 men to your forces of the rebellion. And we see a panel of the men like all rallied and ready to fight, and the beast pirates are completely shocked at this betrayal, and they're like, oh my god, we need to notify Onigashima at once. We need to let everybody know.
So now we get to the point where Denjiro reveals the real plan. So the plan that Kinemon thought was the plan that Yasuie revealed back a few chapters ago, I guess before the last act, that plan was not what Kinemon thought it was, and Denjiro kind of reveals the real one. He says there are two lines over the stomach of the Habu Pit Viper, which represents Habu Port, and then the two lines over the belly basically signal to remove that midsection of the word. So it changes the word to Hato, which means wharf. And obviously, Kinemon didn't realize this, and he thought that it was specifying Tokage port. But Denjiro, knowing that Kinemon is so smart, he's like the smart leader of the scabbards, he told that to the trader on purpose. So he made all the scabbards believe the same thing on purpose. Obviously, that's not the case, but that's what Denjiro thinks. So Kanjuro hears the mention of the word spy, and he kind of makes that Enel face, just that very shocked, like, what? So then Orochi also probably misjudged the distances from Tokage and Hato to Onigashima, moved a little too late, so the allied forces of the samurai and everyone were able to, and all the escaped prisoners, they were able to move prior to Orochi's forces burning down the bridges. And the ships that were sunken were the ones that were left behind, like the extras that they didn't need anymore. So there's 4,200 men that were waiting for the scabbards at Habu Port. So they were all waiting in a maple forest beloved by Yasuie, and the scabbards are relieved at this point, knowing that their forces are okay and well. So the rebellion forces have been rallied. Hyogoro looks resolved. The raid on Onigashima continues, and we see a shot of all the rebellion ships, and there's a lot. There's way more of these ships than there are of the 3 beast pirates. I guess now it's like 1.5 beast pirate ships. So they look like a force to be reckoned with. Luffy comments on the forces and mentions that they're good to go. Kinemon, his face is he's just kind of standing there isolated, very dumbfounded looking, but also he looks really resolved. Kanjuro looks very angry, like the most upset we've ever seen him, just because his backstabbing failed at the end. So he looks just really upset. And it looks like there's a total of 5,400 soldiers to aid the raid at Onigashima. And yeah, so Kinemon, he just kind of looks resolved, disappointed, just mixed emotions. Like he doesn't know how to feel. I think at the end of the day, he's going to carry this on and be happy and excited. But like right now, he's just like, it basically turned like 180. It went from feeling hopeless that there's a traitor in their midst and they don't know what to do, to now they have all the allies, and now the plan is actually going the way that they thought it was going to go. So it went from like no hope to all the hope in the world. And that concludes the chapter.
So Kinemon, he actually misread like the clue, and he told everybody to take off from Tokage Port. So when nobody met them at Tokage Port, the scabbards basically went by themselves. So basically Denjiro goes ahead and points out to Kinemon. He's like, hey man, this was like all a diversion, you know, leading your red scabbards out to be easily conquered and captured, where to draw attention and fire away from like all your samurai forces that you have gathered at the Hato port, like the right port. Really, Kinemon just went ahead and he misread the clue the whole time and like passed it around to everybody. And Denjiro paints this as like Kinemon, you know, knowing the whole time and playing 4D chess to go ahead and tell the betrayer the wrong information so that like he reveals himself when he believes like all hope is lost for the scabbards.
Yeah, it's funny. He actually thinks that Kinemon's a strategic military genius, but it was the exact opposite.
Yeah, so in the end, Kinemon's face on the panel is really just him doing like a stone face. Like he's disappointed in himself, but he's got to like save face to make sure that he keeps morale high.
Oh yeah, and that's why he's not like facing towards any of his allies either. Nobody sees his face.
I mean, I'd be shocked too. Got a traitor and then realized that I screwed the whole plan up, but it just like worked out in my favor. It just, but other than that, I this chapter was great. I love seeing the trio in action again. I love the part with everybody bickering. I love the swift remediation of like all the hopelessness, and all of our rebel forces were wiped out. We have no hope. Momo's been captured, but keep in mind Momo's still captured, so we'll have to see it in the next chapter. But we do have a break next week, by the way.
Yeah, disappointing, but we'll still have an episode next week. Don't worry, guys.
Most definitely. I thought this was a great chapter, though. What were your thoughts? What do you think were your big takeaways from this one?
So first thing is, where did the Straw Hats get their samurai armor from? Because we know that Kinemon can create clothing, but him not knowing that the Straw Hats, like what the Straw Hats were doing, makes me believe that he didn't create their armor. So maybe they could have potentially got it from Denjiro as well, but even then, like, Denjiro only just revealed himself now, so I'm just curious as to maybe Kinemon made this armor before they did their planning. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think so. I remember the Straw Hats being all armored up when Zoro got Enma, because that's when we see the shot of like, I think it was Brook, Luffy, and Chopper, Usopp in like Kabuto armor. So I think they like suited up beforehand. I don't think Kinemon had anything to do with it.
Yeah, just because the last time I saw Nami, she was in her scantily clad ninja outfit from Kinemon. So that's like the last thing I remember of her clothing. So now she's just in like, I think she still has that armor on, but then or that clothing on, but she also has samurai armor on top of it.
It's just total fan service. So, I mean, going ahead and reading into like the whole plan, the whole change in the plan, I think it's hard because we're also from like a westernized culture too, where we don't have like a lot of subtle puns that we would like understand with Japanese iconography and things like that. Maybe if we were Eastern viewers, it would be easier for us to pick up on. But I think that the explanation in this chapter made sense. I think this one in Manga Plus and Shueisha's version is definitely a lot better than the fan subs. I was a little confused when I first read the spoilers.
Yeah, same. I think that this really clarified a lot of things. I mean, one of my annoyances is sometimes they change the names of people that we're used to saying in Japanese. For instance, Inuarashi, they keep calling him Dogstorm. And I've only really recently started reading Manga Plus. So I'm wondering if for Nekamamushi, they're going to call him Cat Viper. Or like how I think they like in the flashbacks they were calling him Cat, right? Like cat and dog. But yeah, I there's some like annoyances I have with the translation, but overall it's way better than the fan translations.
Most definitely. Actually, it kind of brings into question Inuyarashi and Nekamamushi's name. From the top of my head right now, they're obviously Japanese names. They have Japanese translations, so it's food for thought that they would be connected to Wano in some way, because everybody in Wano has like Japanese names.
Yeah, it's totally possible. I mean, it sounds cool, like Dogstorm, like I don't know, like he's a dog literally, and he brings a storm with his swords. Maybe I don't know, but it's a cool name because like there's a lot of swordsmith or sword masters in other cultures or in other media have kind of wind related themes. So, like cutting blade or like wind blade, that type of stuff. It's just like a common trope. So like storm makes sense for a sword master, and same with viper because like, the sting of a blade, like they both they work with swordsmen.
I think we'll definitely find out their meaning of their names when it comes to them going Sulong.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see them go Sulong.
Yeah, so most definitely, like, we didn't get a chance to see them go Sulong against Jack. They never had the chance, and they commented on that. We had no idea what Sulong even was, but, like, it's night. The moon could be out. As far as I remember, Inuyarashi wears glasses, so it's kind of the whole Pick'ems thing. They have to look at the moon with the unaided eye, and then they can go ahead and transform. But we still haven't seen Nekamamushi yet. We still haven't seen Jinbei yet. I definitely think that, so if the raid on Onigashima is successful, I don't think we're gonna see them yet, but I feel as if the rain on Onigashima, if they get like squashed, and the hopes are dashed again, and then we got to crank up the tension again. I definitely think that we're gonna find Jinbei and Nekomamushi with the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So also going back to Sulong form, since we've seen Carrot already do Sulong and her power spiked enormously, and this is Carrot, she's not gonna be as strong as Inu or Neko. So when one of them go Sulong, it's gonna be even greater of a difference, as well as I think that they're gonna have control over that form for a longer duration compared to Carrot as well. So it's gonna be a stronger buff as well as a longer buff.
Most definitely. Think about it too. Nekomamushi is known as the Lord of the Night. Remember that the dog and the cat take like 12-hour shifts. So since Nekomamushi is the Lord of the Night, I would imagine that he would have more experience in controlling his Sulong.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
But yeah, to your statement, I definitely think that their Sulong transformations are going to be ridiculous because they're like the pinnacle of mink achievement for what we know. Like they're the strongest minks that we've seen. So I definitely think that they're going to be, contenders. Beppo too. Beppo's with Law's crew and he's a mink. He can go Sulong.
For sure. So now I want to move on to a question that I've been thinking of, which is who do you think is stronger, Kinemon or Denjiro? I guess I'll go first. Right now, I'm leaning towards Denjiro, mainly because he's had 20 years on Kinemon. Like, he was able to train for 20 extra years. He was the leader of a Yakuza, kind of like second arm to Lord Orochi after Kaido, basically. So he's kind of like Orochi's second strongest ally, most likely. My guess, I don't know for sure, but my guess his power level is going to be on the levels of King or Queen for Kyoshiro or Denjiro. But that being said, we don't have many feats of Denjiro yet. We've seen, like in present time, I should say, we've seen him clash with Zoro pretty effortlessly. Granted, I don't think it was the strongest attack Zoro could do, but Zoro was impressed by how easily Denjiro or Kyoshiro fended off his attack. So that's one. And then the second one was just this recent chapter. We saw him just slice through a ship with little effort. He just kind of sliced through it. So those are both really notable feats, I'd say, all things considered, especially the Zoro one. But yeah, I think that he's going to be pretty powerful, but we also know that Kinemon is really strong, and we've seen a lot more of his feats. You want to talk about maybe some of Kinemon's feats?
Yeah, for sure. So we alluded to this earlier. Kinemon, if you don't remember, he has like a clothing fruit. So he's actually able to make clothing for his teammates. He can make clothing for anybody, and armor is a type of clothing, so he can go ahead and make, like, I wouldn't necessarily say indestructible armor, but he can definitely make armor to give his teammates like defensive buffs, including himself. So I think that's definitely going to play into it. Kinemon himself, he was robbed of like 20 years training time, but even through this faux pas and even through this blunder of him misreading the port and it all turning out correctly, he's still a tactical genius. Okay, Kinemon is very smart. He was able to go ahead and find Kanjuro, find Raizo, find Momo, keep Momo safe, make it all the way back to Wano, and conduct this rebellion. Nobody besides Kinemon would be able to do that. Even Kiku herself says, hey Kinemon, if you can't get your act together right now, none of us can, including Denjiro. So I definitely think Kinemon is the tactical genius of the bunch. He's definitely the leader of the Scabbards. Kinemon himself also cut steel. When he was holed up in Caesar's lab, he went ahead and he cut steel. We saw on Dressrosa during the birdcage, he also hockeyed up his sword and was able to prevent the birdcage from encroaching on everybody and, kind of stop it a little bit. So he's definitely very strong. He definitely knows armament hockey. He has a devil fruit. He's a tactical genius. Kinemon himself also has an elemental sword style. They call him Foxfire Kinemon because he has a fire sword. Apparently, it still hasn't been addressed where his power actually comes from. But when Zoro and Brook saw it for the first time, they're like, whoa, dude, your swordsmanship is off the charts. Like, please teach us. I would love to learn how to do, like, elemental attacks. So, we see Kinemon do elemental attacks with his sword. We also see Brook do elemental attacks with his sword. But remember, Brook's elemental attacks are by channeling, like, the souls of the underworld. So, you know, he can go ahead and it's utilizing his devil fruit that he's able to add ice attacks to his blade. Kinemon is definitely no slouch. He hasn't had the 20 years of training that Denjiro has, but he's still the leader of the Scabbards. I foresee Kinemon as... I think he's going to die. I think there was a lot of death flags for Kinemon in this chapter, but I think he's going to go ahead and overcome some hurdle. I think he's going to sacrifice himself for Momo, and I think that's going to be Kinemon's character. I think it would be a great sacrifice. I also think it has to do to being like a foster father to Momo. So I think once he sees like Momo stand up, you know, he's going to sacrifice himself for Momo, and then that could give Momo the drive to do whatever he needs to do to take down Kaido and Orochi with his allies.
That's a solid theory, and I hope you're wrong because I don't want Kinemon to die. He already sacrificed so much for Wano.
They all have.
Yeah, they all have, but man, like he sacrificed 20 years with his wife. He sacrificed Lord Odin was sacrificed. Like he sacrificed a lot. What's like his life, he would be willing to sacrifice for Wano, I'm sure. But I don't want that to happen. I want him to live. I want him to be happy. We've already had more deaths this arc than any other, or related to Wano than any other arc. Because we had Pedro die. Who was the other one that died?
Pedro died. We also had, I mean, we don't know what's up with Peckham's. Peckham's could be dead. Remember, he got like his eyes gouged out in Whole Cake Island.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, so maybe only one death. But like, I don't know.
But like Odin and his whole family were executed.
True.
So we still had a whole bunch of people die there. I mean, Yasue died.
Oh yeah, Yasue dying. That was it. Yeah, Yasue dying. So we have like one death pre-arc, one death middle of arc, and then I think we're gonna have one death to end the arc. So it would be fitting. I agree. And again, like in One Piece, we don't see many deaths. So the fact that there's already been 2 deaths is really significant, and I think that to what you're saying, to your point, it makes sense to me that there's going to be another death, and Kinemon would be
he'd be a good contender. Welcome to the new world, baby. This is what happens in the new world. We're not playing pirate games anymore. All right.
Can we finish by saying who we think would win in a fight, Denjiro or Kinemon? And my vote is Denjiro right now, even though we haven't seen enough of his feats. Maybe just because we haven't seen enough, that's why I can vote Denjiro. But what do you think?
I would say Kinemon's stronger, but Kinemon's going to die. I think maybe Denjiro is going to take over the role for Kinemon. Remember that the 9 Red Scabbards is supposed to be like an allegory for like if the Straw Hats lost their captain. I totally believe that Zoro would sacrifice himself to redeem like Luffy's honor and pride. And I think that if Sanji had to, if Luffy and Zoro were taken out, Sanji would take over the role. So I'll definitely say Kinemon would win 1v1.
Oh, I never really thought of this as an allegory of the Straw Hats without the captain. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I get from the Wano arc. I believe it's a trial and a tale of what a pirate crew does when they lose their captain. We know there was turmoil with Whitebeard losing their captain. So now we're basically seeing 9 Red Scabbards, 9 Straw Hats. You know, this is what the crew would do if they lost their captain. So this is the trials and tribulations of the things that the Straw Hats would have to go through if Luffy died.
Yeah, and actually to your point, Sanji is always kind of like the spy of the Straw Hats, and that's what Denjiro is in the 9 Red Scabbards. So it does kind of parallel really well that way. So yeah, there's some good points to be made for that.
Mr. Prince.
Okay, so let's go to the Eustace Kid. Wouldn't it be cool if he is a potential D candidate? He does have D in his name, but he's also kind of more on the rotten apple side of the D's. If you know how like there's good D's and there's bad D's. So we got Luffy and we got Blackbeard. They're both D's. They both are very similar, but then they're also kind of polar opposites. So I don't know. You're the one who brought up this idea of Kid potentially being a D. So what do you have to say about that?
So I think it's funny that so one, Kid's a supernova. I'm not saying all the supernovas are D's, okay, but we know that Kid from very early on, Oda stated that Kid was somebody to watch out for. He made it a statement by Kid having a higher bounty than Luffy. Then after we get to through the time skip, Punk Hazard, we see that Luffy and Law they meet up. Law comes out as a D during Dressrosa. And I just think it's funny that the character dynamic between Luffy and Law is like always squabbling. And then we see here that, Kid, Law, and Luffy, they're squabbling, they're bickering. And we know that Kid himself is based off a real pirate, a real Captain Kidd. However, the spelling of Kid's name itself, the real pirate, has two D's at the end. So I think it could be rather fitting if Eustace Captain Kidd is like a secret D, like Trafalgar Law as well. And it makes sense that he would be an enemy of God. Granted, we don't always see him smiling and laughing, but we don't always see Blackbeard smiling and laughing. So we don't know what's up with like this whole negative D faction.
Yeah, I think it's a good point with comparing it to the real life Kid because he could just have a secret D in his name where it would, because the real life Kid it's literally KIDD is the way you spell it. Whereas Eustace Kid is just KID, but maybe it's KID space D as his middle name. And yeah, I think that it's very plausible that he could be a D. And like you said, he might just be an instance of one of the bad Ds turning and becoming a good D, if that makes sense.
So there's like a second part of this theory too, because I feel like whenever we see like two Ds interact, they're always like squabbling and bickering with each other. Like think about when Luffy met Blackbeard for the first time and they're arguing over like cherry pies and meat pies and they're just shit talking each other. I think it's very funny that like when Kid, Law, and Luffy get together, they're always like bickering and they're always at each other's throats. And we know two confirmed Ds. I think the evidence is pretty plausible for Captain Kidd. So taking it a step further here, maybe into a little bit of headcanon territory. If we're to believe that Luffy is the reincarnation of like the will of Joy Boy, I believe that Joy Boy was the leader of the kingdom, the ancient kingdom, the kingdom of the D, if you will. So I believe that Law himself would be like a representation, like a representative of the good Ds. And I think that Kid himself would be like a representative of like the chaotic Ds. And I think that ultimately Luffy helping Kid out and bringing Kid over to his side is going to take those chaotic Ds and bring them under Luffy, who becomes like the Pirate King and the reincarnation of Joy Boy and this mythical figure. I think it's plausible as well. I think it's pretty poetic and I'd like to see it.
I want to just bring up that I think it's not necessarily because they're all Ds that they're bickering when it comes to Luffy, Law, and Kid, because we also see that two strong influencers in the One Piece canon, Goldie Roger, and Whitebeard, they both kind of bickered in the same way. So we know that Whitebeard wasn't a D. It's just that he had kind of a strong character, like he was just strong-willed. Both Roger and Whitebeard were very strong-willed, so they kind of had mutual respect for each other, but also they kind of had different ways of going about things. And ultimately, Whitebeard wasn't a D. So I think that it's still possible that Kid isn't a D because he's very strong-willed as well. We know that all of the supernova captains are very strong-willed, and we can count on that. So it's not like a for sure thing that that Kid is gonna be a D, but it's just fun to think about.
Oh yeah, but then again, these are theories. This is theory crafting territory here. I'm also a proponent of Buggy being a D, simply because of, Buggy D Clown and just his amazing luck. And the fact that even though we always see him and he's always anxious and he's always screaming, at the end of the day, when he's screaming, he's smiling.
I don't think that Buggy would die with a smile on his face.
I don't think that Blackbeard's gonna die with a smile on his face, but he's still a D.
I think I could like see Blackbeard dying with a smile on his face, but I can't see Buggy dying with a smile on his face.
Nah, dude, in Marineford, when Blackbeard thought that Whitebeard was going to kill him, he literally looked shocked. He wasn't smiling. When Ace died, thought he was gonna die, he was smiling. When Luffy thought he was gonna die, he was smiling.
Good point. Good point.
When Jaguar D Saw got frozen, he was smiling.
But I thought that like all the D's had to smile when they die, so I guess maybe that's not the case.
I mean, we don't know about like these chaotic Ds. We just regularly, or excuse me, we just recently learned of the whole dichotomy between like the nice pirates like Whitebeard and Roger, and then like the bad pirates like Rocks and Blackbeard. We know Rocks was a D. You think Rocks was smiling on his deathbed? Maybe if he was burning down Marijois, but I don't think he was smiling on his deathbed. We just don't know.
I have no idea. I don't even know what Rox is like other than the fact that he had to have been very powerful.
All right, follow me here. What if Rocks was actually like a chick and then met up with Ivankov, who like gender bent him, and then he became Dragon? Obviously, it's not plausible. I think it's funny. That's like, hold on, wait. How do you feel about everybody in the fandom thinking that Crocodile was actually like a woman that was gender bent by Ivankov and is actually secretly Luffy's mom?
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous.
Let's move on to Kanjuro's devil fruit power. So in this chapter, we see with the snakes that Kanjuro conjured that Kanjuro's devil fruit is a huge threat. Kanjuro himself portraying himself as a bad artist and actually being a good artist is ridiculous, and I think his fruit has a huge potential to be really, really overpowered. What do you think?
I just want to interject and say that it's totally a Japanese thing to have snakes wrapping around a woman or tentacles wrapping around a woman. Like, Oda did that intentionally, I feel like.
Oh my god, nobody wants Shinobu fan service. Please stop.
It's true.
Maybe 20 years ago, but not now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she had a little too much of that old fruit or age fruit, and she got a little too old. She got a little past her prime, but it's okay. But yeah, I think that so she's a devil fruit user. She's not weak. She's probably stronger than like I'm gonna like go out on a limb and say that her physical strength is probably around Nami level. Maybe a little more because she was actually like trained in hand-to-hand combat with like knives and daggers or whatever as a ninja, whereas Nami, she has her staff, but like, you know, she has very limited. So I'd say that her strength is probably around Nami level, but maybe a little stronger physically, but Nami could probably take her out just because she has Zeus. You know, like Zeus is strong enough to like take out anything for Nami.
I think Shinobu is utilized in a different way, though. I think Shinobu is very strong, but she's like a scout class, so I don't think it's fair to put her up against Nami, because Nami's not really a scout. Even though Nami is a member of the Wiki Trio, I definitely think that Shinobu would be more on par with somebody like Carrot. I mean, Carrot, we see like a scout, like Light, definitely adept in intel gathering, and I mean, her fruit's perfect for that. Shinobu herself is responsible for everybody getting safe from the second burning of Odin Castle. But let's not stray too far off from Kanjuro's devil fruit. What do you think? Is he too OP or what?
Yeah, I don't think he's like too OP, but we just need to explore how powerful he can be. So the fact that he can hold down Shinobu with his devil fruit is pretty significant because she was incapacitated and he was still dealing with Momo. Also, we've seen him draw identical version of himself. Granted, it's not going to be as strong as himself, like physically, because he was one-shot by Kinemon. I think that he can still be pretty formidable because think about going back to Naruto reference, as we like to do in this series. He can effectively do shadow clones, except I guess they'd be more like ink clones in this case. But imagine him just drawing like 100 copies of himself. That would be really scary. I think that stronger members of the Straw Hat Pirates or even the Scabbards might be able to like one-shot all the clones. But yeah, I think that he's going to be strong. He's not going to be pushover. Like the entire time that the Red Scabbards were training, he was probably training, you know, like because he was their Nakama, he was their friend. So yeah, I think that he's going to be really powerful. I think that out of the out of the 9 Red Scabbards, he's probably physically towards the bottom in comparison, is my guess. but I don't know 100% just because we haven't really seen his feats post reveal of him holding back, basically.
Yeah, I think Kanjuro, I think he's going to be pretty good. I think he's going to be pretty OP. Just going back to like Naruto, like Sai, who was a member of Team 10, Sai also used like ink powers as well, so Sai could like manifest his drawing. I'm really interested to see actually what Conjure is gonna do. His Devil Fruit is crazy. What would you do with it if you had it? If you had the inking fruit, what would you do? If it was up to me, I'd like get my enemies, stuck in some kind of like MC Escher, like stairs going everywhere kind of painting just for all eternity. Like we see even like the book fruit is overpowered, so ink is definitely something not to be trifled with.
Who had the book fruit? I don't remember this.
That's Montdor from Big Mom's crew. Remember, he trapped Luffy and Nami in the books, and they had like the prison book and like the rare animal book where you get trapped in like a book dimension.
Oh yeah. And then that's not the same person who did the paint fruit, right? Or art fruit?
No, I think the art fruit was a member of Baroque Works. No, the book fruit's totally different. Like it gets you trapped in like an alternate dimension. So I think
Who was the one in Big Mom's Pirates that turned the Straw Hats into paintings?
they weren't paintings. They were pages in a book. That was Montdor.
Oh, that was? Oh, I thought it was paintings. Because like he like turned them into like Picassos.
I don't remember any kind of painting into Picasso's. All I remember is that Luffy was trapped in a book and he had like nails through his hands and he tried to like tear his hands off until Jinbei came and burned the books and freed Luffy and Nami.
Yeah, I'm talking about someone else. There's another. It's not Montdor. It's a woman, and she had like the art fruit. And
Yeah, I think she was on Baroque Works. I think she was one of Crocodile's cronies.
no, this was in the Big Mom arc.
I have no idea then.
Well, we can bring that up another chapter because I don't remember the specific guy or girl. She looked kind of like a witch, but yeah, I don't remember her name, so I don't know.
Oh, the only witch I really remember from the Big Mom Pirates is Brule. So, what would you do with the ink fruit if you had it? His fruit hasn't even been revealed what the name of it is, I don't believe. But what would you do with it if you had it?
If I had it, I think that yeah, I mean, I would probably try to confuse everyone. So I might use it for illusions to kind of make everyone confused and not, like think that one thing's happening, but in reality something else is happening type of situation so that, yeah, they just want to be able to be as effective as they actually can be. I would just kind of do different types of snares because obviously, like, let's say that I was Kanjuro, I wouldn't be as strong as Luffy or Law. So I'm going to want to distract them, confuse them as much as possible, let my allies do the hard punches because I know that either the numbers or Kaido himself or King, Queen, Jack, one of them will be able to actually physically hurt the enemies. So what I would do is I would try to confuse my enemies as much as possible.
Definitely. That sounds like a good plan. I think it definitely has a chance to be OP. I think the shadow clones are definitely a really good thought. I also, well, not shadow clones, ink clones. I also think that the way Kanjuro fights, I think he's going to be like an illusionist. I think he's definitely going to try to get in like the heads of his enemies because he's not very strong, but he is cunning. So I'm definitely interested in seeing how he's going to fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Just one thing I wanted to point out before we move on is I just absolutely love the way that Oda is drawing the water in this chapter and in these past chapters with the sea battle. I think the stylized waves and the inking are just really, really cool with the storm above. I think the storm is going to pass, and once these storm clouds pass, it's going to be a full moon, going back to our Sulong thoughts of earlier. But it's just his art is just astounding this chapter.
I mean, the waves are very traditional Japanese art of waves. Like, he definitely did that intentionally because this is the Wano arc. And yeah, I agree. I think that this storm is going to clear out. Either Nami could stop it or Zeus could stop it, something like that. But it's going to clear out, and yeah, it's going to still look really cool. Like, yeah, it's great artwork as always.
I also think it's very interesting that they wanted to point out in this chapter that Kaido and Big Mom have forged an alliance. I don't know if the Straw Hats or any of the Pirate Alliance members knew that previously. I just thought that it's interesting that they touch on it again. What ultimately do you think is going to be the purpose of their alliance? Like, what do you think is going to happen, that main event that, their alliance is going to bring about?
I mean, honestly, like what I think is going to happen is I think that this alliance is just going to allow the story to progress by defeating two of the four Yonko and then only having two to go. So that's what I think is why Oda had them join an alliance. And that's more of like a high level meta reason. In terms of how it will play out with like the immediate story, I just think that they're gonna fight together. So we're just gonna have we're gonna see more of the Big Mom pirates again, and we're gonna see them fight again, and we're gonna see the Beast pirates fight again. I really hope that it doesn't go in the way of the Big Mom pirates and Beast pirates are defeated because they just start bickering amongst themselves and get kind of that corny, like, oh, like we hate each other, so now we're gonna fight each other while these other guys are fighting us. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that would kind of be a little boring. I think that they're just going to get defeated. Like maybe like once they're already defeated, they might have a falling apart, but I don't think it'll happen until like the very end when they're already losing.
You know what I also haven't thought of too? Maybe Big Mom's gonna like rouse Kaido out of whatever kind of stupor he's in, and basically what I mean by like this he's a dragon, he's one of the most powerful members in the One Piece universe, and yet he's playing lapdog to Orochi. I think Big Mom is going to go ahead and question his allegiances to Orochi and be like, hey man, you're so strong, like work with me, why the heck are you working with this guy? This dude's a nobody, like he's bad news, like we can do way more crap together than you could ever do with this guy.
Yeah, I think that the person that's going to rouse Kaido out of his funk is going to be Luffy, because Luffy just learned how to damage Kaido. So I think that that's really going to lead to him kind of waking up and being like having a will to live again, because now there's someone who's worthy that he can battle and potentially have like an honorable death, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that in my mind, that's how it's going to go down.
I mean, I'm not talking about like a noble reason for his death or like coming out of his stupor. I'm talking about why this dude's playing lapdog to Orochi. I think Big Mom is basically going to destabilize the alliance between Orochi and Kaido, and I also think Big Mom afterwards is going to stab Kaido in the back. I think Kaido as a figure right now, I don't see how Luffy can defeat him in one-on-one. I find it far more plausible that, Big Mom is going to put him in a weakened state, and that everybody's going to be able to capitalize on that, because he's still a Yonko. He's stronger than Big Mom. Luffy couldn't even fight Big Mom 1v1, and that was like a week ago in the story.
Yeah, but we also have a level up by Luffy. So one of the main reasons why Kaido is so difficult to combat is his armor. His scales are basically really difficult to penetrate. So Luffy now learned a way to penetrate that armor. So he's going to actually be able to deal physical harm to Kaido. And up until this point, we don't even know if Big Mom has that ability to do to Kaido. Like, we don't know if she knows how to use the special type of haki that will kind of project outside of her body. I forgot what it's called.
The Ryo-O.
Yeah, Ryo-O. So I don't, to my knowledge, Big Mom does not have that type of haki. We haven't seen it demonstrated. We haven't really seen her fight too much, but she just seems to be like a brute force type of person, as well as using her homies. So I feel like Luffy actually has a bit better chance against Kaido than he did against Big Mom last arc. Also, I think that another thing that can potentially happen is Zoro now has one of the swords that Odin used to cut Kaido. So it's also possible that Zero can harm Kaido as well. So we have two people who, on the Straw Hats specifically, who have the potential to be able to deal physical harm to, the most powerful man right now. So I think that they have a better shot against Kaido than what you're giving them credit for.
And Sanji can turn invisible. But I'm just saying, as it stands right now, in a one-on-one, you always bet on Kaido. Oda said it himself, as the narrator.
Sure, until now.
I mean, if Shanks can't take out Kaido one-on-one, then what makes you think Luffy can?
I already told you.
But still, okay, so do you think Luffy's stronger than Shanks right now?
Honestly, we haven't really seen many feats from Shanks, so I don't know how strong Shanks is. If Shanks can't take out Kaido, then yes, I think that Luffy is probably stronger than Shanks right now.
Wow, those are big words, dude.
Well, we don't know. We have no idea how power like we know that Shanks has conquerors, but we also know that Luffy has conquerors and Luffy's conquerors is no joke.
Yeah, totally. But I still think there's way more progression from Luffy to be at a Shanks level. I mean, once they meet, that's when Luffy will be on the same power level as Shanks. After they meet is when Luffy will succeed Shanks in power.
Yeah, I honestly would not be surprised if Luffy was already as strong, if not stronger than Shanks at this point.
I don't know, man. It's the fact that Shanks is still some mystical, mythical figure.
Yeah.
I don't think he's at Shanks's level yet. I think he's close, but I don't think he's at Shanks's level yet. We still have to see Luffy defeat a Yonko, and I don't think he can 1v1 Kaido at this point. But you know what? If he does, and if he beats Kaido 1v1, then I'll most definitely eat humble pie.
I mean, honestly, like going back to Naruto as an example, we see Jiraiya fight Itachi and like he's holding his own, but like when Jiraiya dies, sorry, Naruto spoilers, but when Jiraiya dies, I think at that point, Naruto is already stronger than Jiraiya. But like when we were actively reading the story at that point, we would have thought that Naruto was stronger. Or sorry, we would have thought that Jiraiya was stronger than Naruto. But in reality, Naruto was probably already stronger than him at that point. So it's like part of the thing is that we just haven't seen anything from Shanks. We haven't really seen any feats of strength from him. So it's hard to gauge how powerful he really is. And I don't want to just willy-nilly give Shanks credit. We can always speculate at how powerful he is, at how strong he is, but I mean, Blackbeard pre-time skip scarred Shanks, and Blackbeard's not that strong pre-time skip. So it's like, is Shanks really that strong?
Okay, somewhere between Luffy meeting Shanks and Shanks meeting Blackbeard for the first time, Shanks got a scar. I don't think it's safe to say that Shanks was at his power level now when he was scarred by Blackbeard. What I'm saying is, so just because Shanks was scarred by Blackbeard totally just makes him out of running for like one of the strongest characters in the series, stronger than Luffy right now. I honestly believe if Shanks 1v1 Blackbeard, Shanks would lose. I think if Luffy 1v1 to Blackbeard, I think Luffy would lose. All I'm saying is, right now, Shanks stopped Kaido by himself from arriving to Marineford. Luffy right now is going to have his work cut out for him. And when Shanks arrived at Marineford, he didn't have a scratch on him. His crew was fine. It was no thing. But guess what? If Shanks could take out Kaido, don't you think he would?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't know we really don't know that much about Shanks other than like some flashbacks. We barely have that many scenes with him. So I don't know what Shanks would do, to be completely honest. I don't know if he would, because okay, people of like the D clan, and Shanks is very D-like. Like even if he's not necessarily a D, he is very D-like. They don't try to go out and kill people. Like what they try to do is they try to change their ideology, basically. So that wouldn't be the way that I would imagine Shanks to handle disagreements. Like I don't think that he would just go and fight Blackbeard, like just because he wants to prove that he's more powerful. Like I think that he would fight Blackbeard to try to change Blackbeard's perspective of the world, type of situation. Or Kaido as well, or Kaido.
That logic doesn't flow though, because Blackbeard himself is a D, and Blackbeard sends his crew out to kill people indiscriminately for devil fruits.
Yeah, but like I'm talking about the good Ds, not the chaotic Ds.
Yeah, man. All I'm saying is I just don't think Luffy's on Shanks' level yet, and I think it's okay. I think Luffy's still going to have a couple more feats before he can be on Shanks' level and they meet as great pirates. I think defeating Kaido's one of them.
Yeah, I just don't know what Shanks' level is to just give him all that credit is where I'm getting at. Like if he had more feats that we saw, then I would be with you. But we just don't know. So because there's so many unknowns with him, I'm not gonna just say, okay, he's just as strong. Like for all we know, he's weaker than Mihawk. Because
I get
because
you.
Mihawk he doesn't even want to like duel him anymore because he doesn't have a hand.
So let's bring it back for 2 seconds. Can we at least agree that Shanks is stronger than Buggy?
Yes.
Okay. So headcanon here, since we're talking about Shanks and because Eustace Captain Kiddo makes an appearance, I subscribe to the theory that Kid met up with Shanks, talked crap about Shanks losing an arm, and took Kid's arm. Because we've seen that Captain Kidd and Shanks have fought in the past, and after Kid met up with Shanks is when he lost his arm.
Oh, interesting. So you think Kid lost his arm because Shanks took it?
Yeah, Shanks did take his arm, but my headcanon is that Kid crap talked the fact that Shanks did not have an arm, so Shanks took Kid's arm.
I see what you're saying now. Yeah, that's funny.
God, gotta love the ways the D interact. Okay, so the last thing that we have on discussion, unless we have any more freestyling to do, is we saw that the Beast Pirates wanted to notify Onigashima immediately once Kyoshiro turned traitor, the other rebels showed up, and Luffy, Kid, and Law made an appearance. Do you think the intel is going to get there in time? Keep in mind, it's the night of the Fire Festival. The Fire Festival traditionally is the only day that they're allowed to drink alcohol. So, and they're celebrating the alliance of Big Mom and Kaido, so everybody's going to be drunk as hell.
Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that's interesting to think of because obviously Big Mom loves her food and then she's going to be angry when her meal gets interrupted. And obviously Kaido likes his drink, so he's going to be angry when his drinking is interrupted. So yeah, that kind of sets up for some interesting situation. Do you think that okay, wait, sorry, is Big Mom going to be at Onigashima?
Yeah, they're at Onigashima right now, chilling out, taking shots. I like to imagine that they're so drunk right now, they're all passed the hell out.
That'd be
And
hilarious.
Orochi's got like a little nightcap on, like one of those old style pajamas, and he's just sleeping with his harem, and he's like, Kazuki's, they're gonna get me. I love it. I can't wait. I love to think that they're all drunk, and I definitely think like the Straw Hats, I think Law, and I think Kid are gonna like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're gonna lay siege to like Onigashima, and like the rubble from the attacks is gonna wake them up.
Yeah, so wait, I thought that on Wano they don't really have Denden Mushis, right?
They have the snails. They have those little transponder snails that gotta connect to like the big transponder base snail. But even though we see that the Beast Pirates have transponder snails, remember, what's his name? Apu contacted Lord Kaido on a real transponder snail, and Hawkins had one too.
Yeah, so that the snails have kind of more of a limited range. So I think that there's a good chance that they don't get wind of this until like right before. So they're going to be caught off guard a little, I think, and that's going to be great because this entire time they've just kind of always had the upper hand. It'll be nice to see the Beast Pirates and Orochi not have that upper hand that they're used to getting. So I'm excited to see them getting caught off guard and hopefully losing this encounter.
I think that if they lose this encounter, I think that so I don't believe that the raid on Onigashima is going to be the final fight. I don't believe that this is where they're going to face down Kaido. I think they're going to lose, and then like the Grand Fleet's going to come, and Jinbei and all the other associated forces are going to show up, and then they have to do it like again. Because we see sometimes with like especially the big fights, we're talking like Bluno, Crocodile. Sometimes a double fight is necessary. So sometimes Luffy fights somebody the first time, loses, and then has to fight them again to like show his growth. Luffy fought Kaido once while Kaido was drunk, got, Boro breathed into oblivion, and we're going to see Luffy and the forces fight him again, but I still think he's going to have a hard time.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to have a hard time. I like your idea of them kind of losing. I don't know how exactly it'll happen, but definitely I think that there's going to be a scene where all hope is lost, and then the Whitebeard crew shows up with Jinbei and Neko and Izo, and they're going to help turn the tides again. So I think that there will be kind of like that moment of despair again, But yeah, that will be kind of like the savior of this arc is those guys coming in at the last minute, turning the tides and helping them defeat Kaido and Big Mom's forces.
I think so too. I think that would be rather poetic. So I had one more thing kind of like stuck in my head this week, and I didn't write it down, and it's not related to Wano, but we've seen this person played a huge role in One Piece, and we saw him recently, but other than that, we know nothing about this person. But he's one of my favorites. What do you think is the deal with Bartholomew Kuma, and what role do you think he's going to play in the story?
I think Kuma's dead and he's now a robot.
No, the last time we saw Kuma, remember, he was a slave at the Reverie in Merijois to the Celestial Dragons. And remember, Bonnie's like, oh my god, King Kuma, the Tyrant King, like, this is what they've done to you. Like, you were such a loving king, blah, blah, blah. And remember, she was crying when she saw Kuma. Like, even though he's a mindless slave, like, he's still going to play an important role. There's a reason why they showed him as a slave.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I know that like obviously the what is it, the rebellion, Dragon's forces are gonna really they miss him. Yeah, Revolutionary Army, yes. The Revolutionary Army really cares a lot and deeply about Kuma, and they consider what he did as a sacrifice to their cause. So I think that like if anything, if his story does play out, it'll have to do with them trying to save him and get him back to acting normal and not being kind of like brainwashed, mindless zombie mode and back to his old self.
Okay, so two things. So we know that Kuma was turned into a mindless form by Vegapunk, right?
Yeah.
There's some theories out there that Vegapunk has ties to the revolutionaries because Vegapunk actually, he programmed in Kuma's wishes before he was fully turned into an android. So perhaps maybe the revolutionaries call in Vegapunk to kind of like reverse whatever he did. Or, since we know Caesar is now an allied member and we know that Judgy and the Vinsmokes are now allied members of the Straw Hats, maybe they could have something to do with turning Kuma back into who he once was. Considering the whole world now knows that Luffy and Dragon are father and son.
Yeah, I think that's very plausible. I haven't really put in too much thought regarding Kuma lately. I thought that he was going to have a bigger role in the past, but lately we just don't really see much of him. So I don't really think about him too much anymore. Cause like it seems like even when they did the time skip and he's the one who like, kind of pushed everyone to different locations with the pawpaw fruit, we don't really know why he did that. So we don't really know specifically even his last wishes of being able to do that for the Straw Hat Pirates. We don't really know what the motives were, and there has to be motives. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely curious now. You got me thinking about it again, but I just don't know for sure what his plans are, unfortunately. And I liked him as a character, and he's got a cool design.
Yeah, I think he's a really cool character. I definitely think Kuma's just one of those loose ends that needs to be tied up. I think it's going to be addressed once Luffy meets his father, gets the story of all the revolutionaries, and I like to actually see Kuma have like a semblance of himself. And I think it would be really nice if Kuma just apologized for beating down the whole crew and being a jerk to Zoro and making him take everybody's pain at Thriller Bark, and then separating the crew, even if it was for training. I think, you know, Kuma's a very pious man. He needs to repent. Come on, guy.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's pretty much it for me with Kuma. I'm pretty much good with this chapter, and I got all my speculation out, unless you got something you want to think about or discuss.
No, I just appreciate everyone tuning in and listening to us ramble on about One Piece. It's always fun to talk about.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Remember, you can catch us on YouTube at the Void Century Podcast. You can check us out on iTunes, Spotify. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit us up on the Void Century Podcast at gmail.com. We also have a Twitter and an Instagram. Void Century PC are our handles, so check us out. Thanks for sailing with us. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.